Hello, good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM Unity Women's College, Manjeri. Today we are going to discuss the chapter The Outcast from the text Zeitgeist, written by the author Sharan Kumar Limbale. So here we start with part 1, in which we would be going through a brief introduction regarding the author as well as the initial 8 paragraphs of the text. So here we can see this is Sharan Kumar Limbale, the author of The Outcast. So a brief introduction to the author. He is a Maharashtrian poet, an author and a literary critic. He calls himself Akarmashi, which means half caste or impure blood. Now he is the illegitimate son of a higher caste man and an untouchable mother. So, as a result of this, he doesn't belong to both castes, and that is why he says he is half caste or he is of impure blood. He worked as a telephone operator. He also worked in AIR, All India Radio. He worked for the upliftment of the Dalit people. He even said once, writing is a form of rebellion. He has written more than 40 books. His autobiographical novel is Akarmashi, which again means impure blood, and it was published in the year 1984. Later, the English translation of the work came from Santosh Bhumkar in the name The Outcast in the year 2003. He has also written a number of critical essays like Towards an Aesthetics of Dalit Criticism, which is again a part of Dalit literature. He even said that Dalit literature meant a literature of atrocities. Now, the term Dalit was used for the first time by Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. Even the constitutional builder of our country, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, had done a lot of things in order to uplift the Dalit group. So please read the introduction to get more details on this. So what is this chapter about? Now, this is about the caste system prevailing in India. It gives a first-hand experience of the author, and it also talks about the sufferings of the lower class people, how they are ill-treated by the whole society. The chapter is a story of a young boy and his experience as a Dalit in an Indian society. Despite constitutional rights, they still suffer. So before we start, I want you to keep the copy of the text with you, and I want you to number the paragraphs in the text. So please start numbering. You can pause the video and do that. If you have finished numbering, you can see you would be getting 16 paragraphs. So let us begin. Now, before we start, I would again request you that you have to go through the textbook, read the first paragraph, and then listen to the explanation so that you would get more connected with the original text. So, the first paragraph describes an incident in the life of the author. All the boys and girls from his school were going for a picnic. But being Mahar boys, now Mahar is a community which belongs to the lower caste group, they did not know about this. So the author belonged to the Mahar community, and because of that, he was unaware of the fact that there is a picnic which is happening. So they had come to school with their usual school bags, but the teacher suggested them to pick their tiffin and then join for the picnic. They were so excited and ran home like oxen in a race on the care day. So you can see the last line in italics, which means the excitement of the boys. So these lower caste boys were unaware of a picnic happening in the school. So you can see how they were alienated even in schools. Even in educational system, there was a kind of stratification which happened. So they were unaware of this picnic, but the teacher tells them, go and pick your tiffin and join for the picnic. So they were so excited about this, and there is a comparison which is made here. They ran home like oxen in a race on the Kher Day. Now, Kher Day is a festival of farmers. So, there would be a lot of celebration and feast going on at that time along with these race. So moving on to para number 2, thus the Meher boys returned with Jowar Bukhari and chutney packed in their dirty rags and stood in a row. So they went home and collected their food, and see the words used. They were packed in their dirty rags, in dirty clothes, and they stood in a row. Suddenly, a new character appears named as Bivara Bhai, and she pulled Parshia from the row. So, a new character is introduced, that is Bivara Bhai, and she pulled Parshia. Now, Parshia is another boy from the lower class community, a friend of the author. Parshia wanted to go for the picnic, but Bivara Bhai would not let him. Parshia was crying. So Jawar Bhakhari and chutney, you can see it's a round flat bread as you can see in the picture. So this is a very common dish that you can see among the Maharashtrian groups. Now how one lower caste boy was dragged away. This is what is mentioned in para 2. It also speaks about the difficult fate of the lower caste people. So the child wanted to go for the picnic, but his family is not ready to allow him to go for the picnic. Now moving on to para 3, Bivarabai told Pasha that he has a lot of work to do. She said his father had gone to dig pits and therefore he should carry tiffin for him. She was angry and abused Pasha and dragged him away. So see, the parents are not very much concerned about their children getting educated, because education was a faraway kind of dream, because their main struggle was a struggle for livelihood. They were struggling for the normal survival, and in such a condition, they wanted the boys to go to work and not go to schools to complete their education. So, this is very much clear from this paragraph. Moving on to para 4, this para describes the first part of their journey. So the picnic has started. They were looked admiringly by women who were gathering dry dung cakes. Now, why were the women looking at them with a lot of admiration? Maybe because these women were once young girls who wanted to go to the schools but were not allowed to do so. So when they see these young girls and boys moving ahead for their picnic, they look at them with a lot of admiration and appreciation. So here comes another new character, Harrier, another boy who was grazing the cattle, looked at them in a restless way. So he is not a student in school, but he was grazing the cattle from a farm and he looked at them in a restless way. Now, why is he restless? His father took him away from school to work in Grumelia's farm. So, see, he was a boy who studied with the author, but he discontinued his studies because his father took him away and asked him to work in Grumelia's farm. So, Grumelia could be a landowner, and he got rupees 100 per year. Now, 100 per year means maybe he is getting around 8 or 9 rupees per month. Now, this is not a very small amount because this happened a long time before. And secondly, his family was suffering from poverty, but now their situations have improved, because if you go through the text, it is very clearly stated that they did not have enough food to eat, they did not have enough clothes to wear. So Harrier was a burden when he was going to school. He was becoming an additional burden to the family. But now he is not going to school and instead he is working in the farm. So he is also an earning member to the family. So now he is an asset to the family. He was sitting on a buffalo and was singing. But look at his face. Harrier was looking restless because somewhere in his mind he wanted to continue his education, but the situations around him did not permit it. So you can see the boy is really restless. So how boys dropped school in order to work for their survival is also depicted very clearly here. So moving on to para 5, now they have reached the picnic destination. So maybe it's a nearby location, maybe they reached the place by walking. The tough boys went up the tree and the girls ran over the place. So all the children were so excited that they started playing. Girls played Fugadi and teachers played card games. So Fugadi is something which you can make out through the picture. This is what most of the girls play. Even in our location, they hold the hands together cross-handedly and they start swirling around at a high speed. So the girls played this game and the teachers played card games. The author just watched them admiringly, just as the women looked at them in the previous stanza. So the author is not getting into a real time play with these children, because there is something else that we have to remember. There is something else called untouchability, because these lower caste people could not go anywhere near the higher caste people, because the higher caste people believed that these people polluted them. So most of the untouchables were really scared to go near these people. So you can see how alienated the author felt, because he felt like an outcast. An outcast is a person who feels that he or she doesn't belong to that particular group. So moving on to para 6, the higher caste boys played kabaddi. So who are these higher caste boys? Those who belong to the group Wani and Brahmin families. The lower caste boys could not join them because they cannot touch them. The lower caste boys were known as untouchables. The lower caste boys played touch and go. So see, the higher caste boys played one sort of game and the lower caste boys played another sort of game. So there were two different games played by boys from the same school but of two different communities. So see how society can stratify even small children. So the ill effects of caste system. This is very clearly depicted here. So moving on to para 7, after the play was over, the higher caste boys and girls, along with teachers, sat under a banyan tree to eat. Meanwhile, the Meher boys sat under another tree. So see, they are not sitting together. The higher caste people sat together under one tree and the lower caste boys sat under another tree. Now see, the teachers here, they are joining the higher caste group. Now, there is only one reason for that, because most of the teachers belong to the higher caste group. And the reason was that the lower class members could never complete their education and therefore they never became teachers at that point of time. So you can see the teachers also joined the higher caste students. The higher caste students prayed before eating, which could not make any sense to the lower caste people. So sometimes religion would be completely forgotten in the midst of trials and tribulations. Now, there is another book which I would like to mention, that is a book written by Kancha Ilaya, which is titled as Why I Am Not a Hindu. Now, this book is actually mentioned in the introductory part of the text. Now, Kancha Ilaya was a Dalit writer, and in his book, he speaks about the fact that Dalits could not be placed under Hindu community because there is nothing common between a Dalit and a Hindu. He says Dalits have different levels of living, their religious practices are different, their gods are different, everything is different. So how can you place a Dalit under Hindu community? This is a question that he asks, and he brings in a lot of justifications and statements for this. Now, Ilaya says that certain Hindu gods and goddesses like Vishnu, Krishna, Brahma, Saraswati, Lakshmi, etc., these names are not at all known to the lower caste Dalit people, because he says they hear about these names only when they are admitted in schools. And most of them are not admitted in schools because these names come only in textbooks. So these people never see these textbooks. More than that, they have local gods and goddesses which he mentions like Pulimerama, Potterama, etc. So they pray to these kind of gods. And for them, they don't know anything about the other gods like Vishnu, Brahma, Krishna, etc. So he says even in the ways of religion, the Dalits are very different from Hindus. So we should not be connected with the Hindu community is what he says in this book. If you get a chance, please do read the text. It's really an interesting book. Okay, so the higher caste students prayed before eating, which could not make any sense to the lower caste people because the lower caste people never knew about these kind of prayers or the chanting of mantras. Now, moving on to paragraph 8, the lower caste boys opened their bags, which had nothing much to display. So, see, remember it was already packed in dirty racks. Now, when they opened their bags, there was nothing much inside because they were suffering from utter poverty. Malia had bomblefish. Now, bomblefish is a very small, ordinary, inexpensive kind of fish. Umbria had bakri but no chutney. So, look at the condition. On the other hand, the higher caste boys had a variety of tasty fried food. So, fried food is very important here because when you want to fry something, you need oil or ghee. And oil or ghee, these things were unavailable for the lower caste people. So most of the items that they brought, they were very dry in nature and it never emitted a good spicy smell. On the other hand, it was a variety of tasty food that they could see in the boxes of the higher caste students. So it's very funny in one way because there is a kind of discrimination that is coming even in food. There is a discrimination that is coming in clothes. There is discrimination in the way in which teachers approached these students. There is discrimination in the way in which they played games, the way in which they ate food, and even the quality of the food. So these Dalits were discriminated in every walk of life. So with this, we come to the end of the first video lecture. So we would be continuing with the remaining 8 paragraphs in the next lecture. So thank you very much for your patient listening. If you have any queries, doubts, suggestions, or if you need more assistance, please do not hesitate to connect with me in my email ID. So thank you very much. Thank you.